Hello, this video is designed to inform both small and large concession holders about the pre-harvest planning requirements set forth by us, the Guyana Forestry Commission. Compliance with these guidelines will ensure a more environmentally friendly and socio-economically efficient forest harvesting operations. Pre-harvest planning has several key benefits. It allows for well-organized and cost-effective harvesting. It enables annual planning of harvesting activities. It reduces damage to the forest during harvesting, and it also gathers information needed for sustainable and environmentally responsible logging. This includes the physical description of the area and socio-economic information. Both small and large concession holders must follow the pre-harvest planning principles outlined in the GFC Code of Practice and its subsidiary guidelines for forest operations for small concession holders and guidelines for large concession holders. Large concessions require intensive pre-harvest planning. The process includes a pre-harvest inventory, PHI. This involves a 100% survey of all harvestable, merchantable trees, 35 centimeters diameter at breast height, DBH, and above within the 100-hectare block to be potentially harvested. The PHI data comprises of a data sheet and a stock map displaying harvestable species and its location, species diameter at breast height, number of harvestable trees, and volume of harvestable trees. Forest officers will do a 2.5% ground verification of the information submitted by the forest sector operators. This data is used to grant approval for harvesting, issue log tags for tracking purposes, or require the concession holder to redo the PHI until it meets the acceptable limit. Bullets 1 and 2 above are then initiated. Successful pre-harvest planning involves a series of steps completed over a specific time frame. Here's a breakdown of the key activities. 2 years in advance, GPS demarcation of the area to be harvested must be done, as well as zoning of non-harvestable areas. A harvesting map at a scale of 1 to 2,500 or 1 in 10,000 must also be done, as well as planning of secondary forest roads. 1 year in advance, pre-harvest forest inventory and zoning of forest harvesting area. Mapping, measuring, and preliminary markings of harvestable trees. Identifying watercourses, buffer zones, steep slopes, and other exclusion areas. Planning of skid trails and log landing on the harvesting map. 4 to 6 months in advance, construction of secondary roads must be done. 1 to 3 months in advance, final selection and marking of harvestable trees. Locating, marking, and preparing of skid trails and landings on the ground. And locating and marking of protected trees close to skid trails and near harvestable trees. Required plans include a forest management plan and an annual operational plan. While 100% pre-harvest inventory is not required for small concessions, conducting a less intensive survey is recommended. This will aid in developing an annual harvesting plan, identifying harvestable species and volumes, determining infrastructure needs, as well as scheduling harvesting activities. Just like large concessions, successful pre-harvest planning involves a series of steps completed over a specific time frame. Here's a breakdown of the key activities. 6 months in advance, you should identify non-productive areas, as well as identify watercourses and non-harvestable areas, which includes buffer zones, steep slopes, and other exclusion zones. 3 months in advance, construct forest roads where applicable. 1 month in advance, locate and prepare skid trails and landings on the ground. You should also locate and mark protected trees close to skid trails and near harvestable trees. Pre-harvest planning allows you to identify areas where logging is not allowed. These include riparian zones, where vegetated areas along watercourses are. They play a vital role in maintaining water quality and ecological health. Logging in these zones can increase erosion and harm aquatic life. Steep slopes. Operators should identify steep slopes to avoid accidents. Always remember the downhill skidding limits as shown on your screen. Remember, exceeding slope limits is dangerous. The same applies to uphill skidding as shown on your screen. Avoid cross-slope skidding and winching at angles. Plan your route. Avoid turning on steep slopes. Identify and avoid no harvest zones before you start. Work safely and follow the guidelines. Unharvestable areas include swamps, rock outcrops, and environmentally sensitive areas near watercourses. Buffer zones. These are established around watercourses, swamps, culturally or ecologically significant areas, and public roads. These zones act as protective barriers to minimize logging impact. Watercourse buffer zones. The width of these zones varies depending on the watercourse. Consult the GFC's guidelines for specific details. Requirements for non-harvest areas and buffer zones. These areas should be strictly protected during harvesting operations. The GFC guidelines elaborate on these requirements. Felling restrictions. Trees less than 35 cm DBH cannot be felled for commercial purposes without permission. No tree shall be felled within 8 meter proximity of another stump to maintain the size of canopy gaps, unless they are 40 cm DBH. Trees to be protected during harvesting. This includes keystone species and potential crop trees. These trees are vital for forest regeneration and should be marked for protection. The lists are as follows. Roads and skid trails. Pre-harvest planning should designate the path of logging roads and skid trails. These should be designed to minimize environmental impact and soil erosion. Here's a quick recap of the main points we've covered. Pre-harvest planning is required by the GFC for both small and large forest concession holders. Pre-harvest planning helps to reduce damage to the forest, improve organization, and cost effectiveness of harvesting. Large concessions require a more intensive pre-harvest planning process, including a PHI of all harvestable trees. Small concessions do not require a PHI, but are recommended to conduct a less intensive survey to identify harvestable species and volumes, plan infrastructure needs, and schedule harvesting activities. Pre-harvest planning also helps to identify areas where logging is not allowed, such as riparian zones, steep slopes, unharvestable areas, buffer zones, and watercourse buffer zones. The GFC guidelines specify requirements for non-harvest areas and buffer zones, felling restrictions, and trees to be protected during harvesting. By following proper pre-harvest planning procedures, you can ensure that your operations are more sustainable, minimize environmental damage, and operate more efficiently. Thank you for watching this video.